The LGBTQ plus movement has gained momentum in the past 2 decades. The internet and social media are key catalysts. Activism has reached an unprecedented scale and has put pressure on companies and governments to stop acts of discrimination. This is a good thing, certainly, and long overdue. But there is a downside. It has also triggered an even stronger pushback from groups and governments who are uncompromising in their stand against the LGBTQ plus community. The result, dialogue and discussion aren't given a chance. It's become even more adversarial, binary, 2 opposing camps. You are with me or against me. There's pressure to take sides when most of us are somewhere in the middle of the spectrum. There's just so much of confusion, misreading, and anger on both sides. There's also growing intergenerational tension where older people like me are constantly struggling to keep up with an ever-increasing list of politically correct terms. It's just a lot to deal with and cope with in a compressed timeline. And it's an environment that's increasingly unforgiving. This is why we have decided that it's about time that we have a discussion on this. We want a meaningful dialogue. For this, let's commit to being honest, to being open-minded, without becoming impolite. The topic is LGBTQ+. Why cancel conversation? It's a complex issue. So here's some background information, in the tradition of IQI. While LGBTQ+ is modern day terminology, the issues surrounding homosexuality and alternative gender go far back. The ancient Romans, the Chinese and Indian civilizations had a high level of acceptance of queer individuals. This was not the case with more modern Western civilizations influenced by Christian belief and values and the Arab world ruled by Islamic dogmas. Let's fast forward and recognize key milestones. 1533, the UK passed the Buggery Act, making sodomy a crime punishable by death. 1642, in the Virginia colony, today's USA, a man was tried and hanged for sodomy. It was only in 1861 that the death penalty for sodomy in the UK was replaced by a 10-year prison term of hard labor. Awareness and real change actually started only after the end of the Second World War. 1950, the first lasting gay organization in Los Angeles. 1952, the first transgender person came out to speak openly in the USA. 1970, the USA had its first Gay Liberation Day March. In 1972, the UK had its first Gay Pride March. It took another 2 decades for the world to have the first country to legalize same-sex marriages, the Netherlands, 2001. In 2002, the US Supreme Court decriminalized homosexual behavior. In 2004, the UK introduced the Gender Recognition Act, which allowed trans people to have full legal recognition and get new birth certificates. In 2010, the Equality Act in the UK, giving LGBTQ members equal treatment in when it comes to access to employment. In 2016, Barack Obama dedicates the new Stonewall National Monument as the first US national monument to honor the LGBTQ+ rights movement. In 2019, Taiwan became the first Asian country to legalize same-sex marriage. Since then, it has seen over 7,000 same-sex marriages in Taiwan. In Southeast Asia, Thailand and Vietnam are leaders in the LGBTQ rights. The rest of Southeast Asia, unfortunately, is known for being not supportive of the LGBTQ+ community. Take Brunei. It practices Sharia law, where homosexuality is punishable by death. Countries in the Malay archipelago, essentially Indonesia and Malaysia, have become strongly entrenched against the LGBTQ movement because of a combination of Christian colonial belief and the influence of the conservative brand of Islam from the Arab world. 10 Muslim countries in the Middle East and South Asia still impose the death penalty for persons engaged in homosexual acts. Now, Iran, that's interesting, is unique. In 1987, a fatwa or a ruling was issued to allow people to go for sex assignment surgery. The state not only allows transsexuals the right to change their gender, it actually subsidizes it. Homosexuality was not taboo in the Indian civilization, which included today's Pakistan and Bangladesh. For example, the Hijras, spelled Hijras, have existed for over 2,000 years in South Asia. The Hijra is an institutionalized third gender. In other words, they are not male, they're not female, but they contain elements of both. The community is 3 million strong in India alone. They are accepted as a legitimate part of society. However, this was affected when in 1871, the British colonial government outlawed the Hijras. Now, part of the stigma exists even today. In Latin America, even though essentially Catholic and conservative, several countries have evolved to support their LGBTQ plus communities, mainly with progressive legislation. These countries include Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil, Costa Rica, and Colombia. Yet, in the USA, the situation remains complicated, given the increasingly polarized nature of society. The legal status of LGBTQ plus rights remains dubious. Most activists moved away from what used to be a posture of compromise to a win without exceptions stance. At the same time, the accelerated pace of LGBTQ plus victories has led to conservatives digging in their heels against the LGBTQ plus community. Given the pervasive American influence, this adversarial stance has had a palpable effect in the way many other societies are today addressing the LGBTQ plus issue. So it is evident that the cultural and historical context and experience has shaped the way different societies are addressing or choosing not to address the LGBTQ plus needs and concerns. Now, this is why any serious discussion on the subject must include voices from different parts of the world. Now, we have tried to do exactly that. The issues surrounding the plight and rights of the many marginalized communities all over the world will increasingly polarize and threaten to tear societies apart. Now, among these, the LGBTQ plus community stands out in 3 ways. Now, first, it has been subject to discrimination and suppression for centuries in the name of medical, religious, and even legal tenets. Second, a new sense of justice is clearly emerging, especially among the millennials and Gen Z. We saw it happening, right? Which is transcending ethnic, geographical, and religious affiliations. Now, third, and very importantly, the LGBTQ plus movements around the world are growing in strength and numbers. And I must say that it's also becoming more impatient, uncompromising, and in some cases even aggressive. But it certainly cannot be ignored, the LGBTQ plus movement. Now, just as in the case of climate change, there is an urgent need for societies and leaders to be more proactive in finding ways to engage LGBTQ plus communities, regardless of whether you agree or not. There must be a genuine desire and a willingness to find common ground and shared interests. We talked about this. But that means that we must be prepared to live and let live. And for this to work, my humble request first to the LGBTQ plus communities is this. I can understand the anger, the frustration. It has been wrong for too long. But if we want meaningful dialogue that leads to concrete outcomes, we do need to weaponize less and go easier on canceling those of us who may trip and slip along the way, or even see things slightly differently. It's important to give people the incentive to learn from mistakes. I talked about this earlier. I truly believe that even though there may be a significant number of people who may not see eye to eye with the LGBTQ plus movement at this point in time, there's a rapidly increasing number of people across boundaries who do want to see a better, fairer, as Prem said, and a just world. There is enough space in this world. Let's share it better. You know, it doesn't make sense for us to be destructive in seeking to destroy what has been destructive. This was Inconvenient Questions, where conversations awaken.